Just starting with Carson Wentz, you obviously faced him last year and have watched the film last year. What areas do you see kind of the most growth and improvement with him?
Well, I think it's just general, command of the game. He just seems to be really on it. They're doing a great job coaching him. He's to be this young and this well versed in so many critical areas. He's just a terrific football player, and they're lucky to have him.
Last year, after the game, you even went as far as to say that he would be a great player, even though he had, I think he completed less than 50% of his passes, threw 2 interceptions. What did you see then that told you that he'd still be great?
I think he's really comfortable with the challenge of it all, and it's not too big for him. You could sense that in his play, and when you're on the field with him, regardless of what that game meant, you could see it, and. He's got leadership, he's got toughness, he's got awareness. He just has all the elements to be a great player, I think. I mean, it's what it looks like.
Pete, how have things changed for you without Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, in the secondary and everything?
Well, just in a obvious sense, these guys have been here for a long time. They've been the leaders, and they've had a big voice around here and a presence. So you miss that. Fortunately. Our guys are stepping up to play for them, but you still that experience and savvy. You can't replace that. So that part's unique. Fortunately, our guys have hung around with us and kind of stayed alive with the locker room and the meeting rooms and stuff like that to keep their kind of the awareness for the younger guys where there is a presence for them. But you can't replace it, and they're fantastic players.
After Marcus Smith's time here, Pete, what made you want to take the chance on him in Seattle?
Well, we thought he had plenty of ball left. Sometimes guys go places and the expectations are so high, it's hard to meet up with it. You get a high draft pick like that, and your expectations are so high that it just doesn't fit. And we saw him as a guy that could help us and jump in and be versatile, and he's done all of that. So he's been a good addition to our team. We're happy to have him.
Pete, over Russell's 5 years there, your offense has changed as far as the run-pass balance. How much of that is intentional? How much of it is circumstances?
Well, we like to run the football around here. We've tried to stay balanced as much as we can, knowing that it's, in our opinion, it's the best formula for winning and over a long period of time. And so we've done what we had to do. When we could run it a lot, we ran it a lot. When we have to pass it more, we got to do it. And so. But I'm always seeking balance, just because we covet that way of playing football.
It seems like every week Russell Wilson is able to break the pocket and make a play downfield to Doug Baldwin. That QB scramble drill that you guys have almost perfected, how has that come about, and how did that develop into something you guys do so well?
Well, it starts with the quarterback, the guy that has the sense for doing it and the ability, the agility to get out of the pocket, and then it takes the vision and all of that. So it starts there, but then it's just drilling. It's just after a long period of time, there's a chemistry that develops and an awareness in space that has to happen. And Doug's great at it, and Russell's great at it, and they've really kind of inspired other guys to work hard to find their own ways to create the space that makes them available for us, and then that's how we play. And so. It's just hard work and a lot of time, and we've been doing this for quite a while.
How much easier does the path to the Super Bowl become when you have the home field throughout? You've had it a few times. How much easier does the path get?
I think it's what you're shooting for. It's for us playing here is such a challenge. That we know that it gives us the kind of edge you need. It's so difficult to make it to the final game and all that. So. That's one of the best. It is the best path, and so you fight your tail off all year long. In your division first of all, then you win your games, and hopefully you have a record that gives you a chance. It just gives you the best opportunity. It's not the only way. You can obviously do it other ways, but it's worth fighting for.
What's that bye worth too? Just that first, not having to play that first week.
It's just one less game. That's all. I mean, it's not. I don't think it has to do with the rest or any of that kind of stuff, because teams sometimes don't take advantage of it. But it's that you only have to get a couple games and you're there. So the games are so hard. That it's just a better pathway.
It seems under you that you guys are best late in the season. I think 17-5 in the month of December. Why is that? What's the key to being good this time of year?
Well, I don't know. We've always pointed it at finding our best as we finish, and so it's been something that we have kind of just made part of the fabric of who we are, and that's why we try to find ways to demonstrate that at other times of the year as well, so that when you do get to the finish of the season, you're at your best. You got to practice it. You got to practice the mentality of it, and Russell's a big part of it. He's been a fantastic finisher and a great fourth quarter quarterback, and it's kind of carried over to the fourth quarter of the season. So we're going to try to find it again, and we're going to need it. This is a great matchup we have right here heading into the fourth quarter of the season, and this will be be emblematic of whether we're able to find it again.
You mentioned Russell being a great fourth quarter quarterback. I mean, he has been his entire career, but this season he leads the league in fourth quarter passing. I think 14 of his 23 touchdown passes have been in the fourth quarter. What makes a great late game quarterback like that?
I think it starts with his attitude, his belief in himself. I mean, he has an unwavering confidence that he's going to find a way to get it done, and so he's always looking forward to that next op, and it starts there. Then the chemistry with your coaches and the calls that come in and how to utilize them, the players that you got to work with. He's got great chemistry with Russell and with Doug and with Jimmy and Paul Richardson. You can see those guys come through for him, and they all have a real mentality about it.
Why is Earl Thomas so good at anticipating a quarterback especially when he's playing free safety?
Well, he's been a gifted football player. With number 1 draft pick and all that coming out, and he has great speed. Then again, in his realm, he's got tremendous confidence in believing in what he sees, and so you see great conviction out of him. When he sees something and he knows what it is and feels the quarterback, he goes as well as anybody's ever done. And so you put the combination of he's got instincts and then he's got speed and he's got the confidence. That's what makes the guy play at that kind of level.
Pete, you guys have to cross the continent quite a bit with so many teams being in the Eastern time zone. How big a barrier is that? Is there anything you guys have done to mitigate it? And a reason asking because the Eagles are going to stay on the West Coast next week after they play you guys because they have the Rams coming up. Have you ever done anything like that?
No, we've never done it that way. We have our way of dealing with it, and early on when we were here, when we were teaching how to approach it and how to get prepared to do it, we struggled like historically everybody does, and it's a difficult trip going through the time zones and all that. So. But we in the last few years we've figured out how to do it. Our players are comfortable with the formula and how we approach it and all that. We have not stayed and stayed out. We try to keep things as normal as possible and work it at the other end. And we found a way to do it. But you got to. It takes time, and you got to figure it out a little bit, and you got to get your players on board with how to deal with the time frames and the adjustments and all that.
Pete, are there like a couple of factors as far as you guys being able to sustain the success, for several years like you have? I mean, what would you say like the most important factors are in that?
Well, part of it starts with the quarterback. You get the quarterback that can win and can carry the system for you. That's part of it. But it really gets back down to the consistency. You have to have consistency in your approach, in your mentality, so that you can withstand the ups and downs and the challenges and the big wins are just as hard as the big losses to push behind you, and you have to have a real mentality for that. And we've developed, I think, a discipline that allows us to have a chance to keep coming back and bouncing back and staying with it. And that's something that's it doesn't just happen. You have to work at it and develop and really draw on your leaders to make sure that the messages stay solid, and it's really consistency in approach.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously easier said than done because, there are a lot of teams that have really good years, but then they, slip back and everything like that. I mean, so I guess like the consistency you would say is probably the most important factor?
Yeah, I think it's not just the word consistency, but it's the consistency and the commitment to your philosophy and your approach that stays the same, so that the players, because in all sports, players waver. They waver from the influence of the games and what's going on with the season and the media and all that stuff, and you have to work against that and have a discipline that doesn't allow you to be moved off course. And so that's approach and language and the demanding of staying after it. So it's a great challenge to me in coaching, and for all of us is to find a way to stay on top for a long time, and that's what we're shooting for.
You mentioned the home field advantage you guys have there. But the last couple of games you haven't been able to win at home. Are you worried about teams no longer fearing playing there?
No, I don't care about that. I never have. I'm not banking on anybody fearing anything. We're just playing football, and we play a good place, and we got to play well when we're here. If we do the right stuff and play well, then the results are what they are. I don't think it has anything to do with fear, and I don't care about that at all.
As you first put on the film this week, what jumped out to you about the Eagles? What made you think they're a 10-1 team?
They're so well balanced is really what jumps out, and they're explosive on offense. They're very, very well suited on defense with a really good front and good attack on that side, and special teams is really solid. They've been good for. We've noticed their special teams for a number of years. Their consistency. So they're just like what the really good teams have is they have a balance to them where there's no vulnerability, and these guys are really solid.
You mentioned Jimmy Graham earlier, Pete. He's a much bigger factor in your offense this year than he was in the first 2 years there. What's been responsible for that? Just the fact that it's his third year there?
Well, he's healthy. He got hurt a year ago and 2 years ago, I guess it was, and so he didn't get a chance to finish that one. It was a really rigorous rehab and return. He barely made it back. Did not have the kind of off-season work-wise and with the quarterback and the throwing game and all that stuff because he was just fighting to just make it back. So this is really the first time we've really had the benefit of the return with him in good shape and good health and all that, and the time it takes to develop the chemistry. So it's just been a process, and really he and Russell are really tuned in, and hopefully we can keep doing it and keep us on track to score a lot of touchdowns with those guys.
Hey Pete, going back to the choice to stay on your coast as opposed to the opponent's coast when you're making the cross-country flight. So what was the challenge that you found when you tried the other approach if you are on somebody else's coast?
Are you saying about not staying out there or staying out there?
Yeah, I mean, what did you see as the challenges or perceived challenges if you were to stay in somebody else's time zone as opposed to your own?
Well, it's just all the unfamiliarity, that's all. And sometimes it's fun and good. It's like bowl game preparation or something like that. You get on the road and it can work for you. It just depends how it works. But it is just the change in the routine and all of that. We were desperately connected to our consistency, and that's been something that we have really been committed to. And that just takes you out of that. That's all. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just how you handle it. And some other teams have done it successfully. That's just not the way we do it.
Pete, kind of an off-the-wall question. As a coach with a defensive background, is there much of an advantage for an offense that scripts the first 15 plays? And how do you combat it as a defensive coach?
It goes back to Coach Walsh. He as far as I know, he was the one that first kind of coined that as a way, and it has to do with just letting your players know what you're thinking and getting them prepared and all that kind of stuff. But most teams don't stay on it, but it is a guideline, and it's just a practice of committing yourself to your game plan is all.
How's Matt Tobin been, and why was that a trade you guys wanted to make?
Well, we needed some consistency and a guy with versatility, and Matt's played everywhere, and so that was really valuable to us. That he could play guards and tackles, and he's been able to do that for us and been a really good addition.
You hoping Russell's not your leading rusher when the year's over?
I don't care. I ain't worried about it.
Just for clarification, when you said the bowl game in regard to practicing all week in a different place, were you referring back to your college days, or were you talking about Super Bowl?
Both.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, guys. See ya.